Welcome to the Flourishing Leader podcast, where we dive into the dynamics of the professional working world. I'm Audrey Simmons.
And I'm Belinda Joseph-Pirame. This podcast is dedicated to inspiring leaders to live a life of well-being, both personally and professionally, so that they too may flourish.
Belinda, it is so wonderful to be here with you today. Thank you so much for taking the time to connect with me. I wanted to ask you a few questions to give our listeners an opportunity to really hear from you about your experience and your past and your business. You are such a well-qualified, accredited, and highly experienced existential and CBT psychotherapist. I want to know what initially drew you to the field of psychotherapy.
Yeah, hi Audrey. It's lovely to be here and to sit answering these questions with you. Well, initially I really wanted to move into the field of clinical psychology. For as long as I can remember, I've always been really curious about people and what makes them tick. And I went off and did a first degree in psychology, and my plan was to do an MSc in health psychology, and that was going to be my pathway into clinical psychology, where I'd be working on acute psychiatric wards. And while I was training, I took a psychiatric nursing assistant job, which was pretty common for people training at the time, so I could get a bit of experience. And I found more and more that I just loved being in conversation with patients and hearing about their life stories and their aspirations. And, while I didn't enjoy them feeling distressed, I really enjoyed just being in conversations with them and trying to help them. And one day I was working and just got a really strong intuitive pull that was like, you need to be doing something else. You need to be doing psychotherapy and not clinical psychology. So I went off and did a master's degree at Regent's University in London, and then followed up with several postgraduate qualifications, including cognitive behavioral therapy and an advanced diploma in existential psychotherapy. And yeah, I haven't looked back. I love the work as much today as I did when I began. So, and that's after 24 years. So I'm really lucky, really.
Oh, that's wonderful. It's so wonderful. So you've offered therapy for 20 years, over 20 years, before adding executive coaching and mentoring to your skill set, which you added about 4.5 years ago, almost 5 years ago. What prompted that decision? What prompted you to get into coaching and mentoring?
Yeah, well, I'm always a bit tickled when I think about this, because actually I had just no interest, like zero interest in coaching before that time. I kind of thought it was a pseudo discipline. It was therapy light, and I thought that it really lacked any credibility. But since then I have actually been coached, and I've found it to be really powerful and helpful, actually. And I think, there are lots of different ways of being helped, and there are lots of different things that are available to help people to help themselves, and coaching is one of them. So I've experienced a real turnaround with regards to coaching. I think what I found as well in my therapy work, and particularly during the time that I was working in the City of London, I had more and more clients that were coming in from leadership backgrounds. And, there were people that were leaders or business owners, entrepreneurs, and they were coming into the therapy room and starting to talk more and more about their work environments. And I began to become really curious about what was happening in the workplaces, some of which were quite foreign to me. And I found more and more that I really wanted to help. I not only wanted to help people, but I wanted to help improve the working environments that they were in. So I just developed this really organic kind of curiosity about it. And I sought out a training that was aimed at psychotherapists who wanted to work from a coaching approach with organizations. And then once I successfully completed that, I thought, there's more. I had sort of a thirst for knowledge. And yeah, just had this intuitive arrival at, actually, I think executive coaching and mentoring, I think that's where I want to go with this. And so I went off and qualified.
That's great. That's great. Thanks, Belinda. Thank you. Why did you name your company Eudaimonia Therapy and Coaching?
Yeah, so one of the things being an existential psychotherapist originally is that I have a real interest in philosophy, and one of the philosophical concepts is that of eudaimonia. So eudaimonia is kind of a Greek term, and it doesn't really have a kind of tidy English translation. So it gets translated in different ways. So, some people will translate the term to mean happiness. Others will translate it to mean flourishing or well-being. But for Aristotle, it meant living well. And that concept of living well really marries with a personal philosophy I have that, we only have one life, as far as I'm aware anyway, and that it's really important to live well and to live as contentedly as is possible, whatever that means to you. So I'm deeply passionate about helping people to live well and empowering them, to really shape and create a life that they can feel joyful and contentment in. Yeah.
So you've described your coaching approach as integrated coaching or therapeutic coaching. Say a little bit more about this approach.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm really excited to talk about integrated coaching because it's really a pioneering and emerging approach within coaching. It's not particularly old. I mean, coaching itself is not especially old, but the integrated aspect is really, at least how I define it, is blending the goal-oriented, future-focused and results-driven structure of classic coaching with the more exploratory, healing, reparative elements of existential and CBT psychotherapy. Integrated coaching is going to mean something a little different to different dual practitioners because it's very dependent on how you work as a coach and how you work as a psychotherapist. And at least in terms of psychotherapy, there are so many different psychotherapy approaches. So there's something that feels a little bit snowflake-ish about it as well, that there's something really beautiful and unique in the ways in which people can work. But yeah, for me, I like to kind of pull in the strands of meaning and purpose from existential psychotherapy to things like unhelpful thinking habits and how to tackle those in a really practical way, which comes from the CBT psychotherapy, and then sort of funneling that all into that classic coaching structure. It's a really exciting time, I think, in coaching, in terms of integrated coaching.
Very good. Very good. I think it's amazing. I'm very excited for it. I'm excited for the work that you've been doing. And I think there's huge benefits. And that leads me to my next question. From your perspective, what benefits have you seen leaders gain from combining therapy and coaching?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I'm really pleased to be involved with is I sit as deputy chair on the BACP coaching division. And it's dedicated to dual practitioners and, we're building a center of excellence. We're looking to really provide support and a sense of belonging for dual practitioners. And there's really exciting research because we're really interested in supporting kind of gathering an evidence base around integrated coaching. In terms of how it's of benefit to leaders, my personal experience has been that in terms of the leaders that I work with, that often they not only present with professional challenges, so it might be that they want to be really impactful and really effective as leaders, but they may actually have internal or personal blocks that are kind of impeding them. So an example might be that, a newly recruited leader, how that might play out is perhaps they want to settle into a new role. And we know that early recruitment for newly recruited leaders can kind of be a vulnerable and delicate time. And yet, for some clients, they might be hampered by unhelpful thinking, imposter syndrome, for example, or feeling fraudulent is one of the common things that clients come with. So it's working on those internal kind of blocks so that a leader can be the best version of themselves in their leadership role. Some clients that I work with will have quite complex histories. And while they might not be in a really acute phase of distress, that might mean that psychotherapy would be more of an appropriate intervention. They may feel the edges of things. They may struggle with the edges of particular things. So, for example, someone might have a history of trauma. They might not be experiencing acute trauma symptoms, but they might find that they shut down if they're in conflict with somebody or finding their voice and being assertive, for example. So it just allows for this really beautiful opportunity to work on the highest aspirations that a client has, as well as the vulnerabilities or the stumbling blocks that they might be experiencing, because they're an integrated person, so they get to reap the benefits personally and professionally.
That's great. No, that's wonderful. It's time, right? It's time to bring ourselves together as a whole person, as opposed to leaving our hearts in the car when we walk into work, right?
Yeah. And it's I'd encourage anyone out there to sort of, keep an eye. There is a real movement happening in coaching around integrated practice and working in this way. It's exciting. It's really exciting to be a part of, I think. The Flourishing Leader podcast has two sponsors, Team of Greats, LLC, and Eudaimonic Therapy and Coaching. Our first sponsor, Eudaimonic Therapy and Coaching, provides psychotherapy for people struggling with stress, anxiety, and depression. Also on offer is executive coaching for leaders experiencing stress, burnout, and other well-being issues blocking personal effectiveness. For information or to book a free consultation, please visit www.eudaimonic.co.uk. That's www.eudaimonic.co.uk.
Our second sponsor is Team of Greats. Team of Greats is a coaching company partnering with professionals around the world, including those with ADHD or ADHD-like characteristics, offering individual leadership coaching, team coaching, and mindfulness courses. For more information, reach out to www.teamofgreats, that's GREATS.com, teamofgreats.com. Okay, so my next question is, can you tell us a little bit about your interest in leadership, mental health, and well-being?
Yeah, so I have a real interest in leadership, mental health, and well-being. Most of that has really been born out of what I've seen clients bring organically into the coaching room and the psychotherapy room, but also I have my own 12-year leadership history where I worked mostly in senior leadership and spent some of that time in mid-level management. And that was within the charitable and the private sector. And so what that's given me is a really personal and lived experience of what it's like to be a leader. And so when clients come to me with their concerns, I can relate to many of the challenges that they're bringing because I have had my own version of them. Alongside my own personal experiences and what I hear about in client experiences, what's really interesting and apparent at the moment is that there's a growing and very strong body of research on mental health and well-being of leadership populations. And what more recent research is showing consistently is that global leaders are facing alarmingly high levels of stress, anxiety, burnout. You know, the levels are just too high. They are too high. And I'm really keen to help leaders to help themselves to remedy that. You know, and that's the interesting thing about integrated coaching is that in as much as people are able to bring their professional goals, they also get this really wonderful opportunity to address really personal mental health and well-being concerns. You know, it's really an approach for the leader that may not want or need psychotherapy, but requires a little bit more depth in their coaching approach.
What do you enjoy the most about helping your clients?
I tell you, there is nothing better. It's so special to me when I see clients at the end of their personal development journeys. And of course, they go on to continue that. You know, I'm just a train stop in their journey. But, you know, I often remember how people are when they walk through the door and what it was that they wanted for themselves and their emotional state, their psychological state, you know, and sometimes they're in real distress, overwhelmed, stressed out, anxious. You know, they want so much for themselves as soon as possible, if possible. But it's just really beautiful to watch over and over the ability that human beings have to change and create change, create lasting change, and to find relief and to celebrate that with them. I really love reflecting back a lot of what's happened and in conversation helping them to pick out and reflect back on what's happened so that we were able to kind of map the progress together. It's just a beautiful thing. I feel deeply grateful that I get to be a part of that and that I get to help people. You know, that thing of helping others, it's just been something that's been in me and that I've wanted to do since I was a child, and that I get to do that personally and professionally. I don't know, it's just really special.
Can you tell us the story about a time when your coaching really helped someone?
I was supposed to take the example that I began to mention earlier, without being too specific also, is that sometimes I found it truly extraordinary watching clients who have really complex trauma histories, you know, who've been in that place of really deep fear and lack of confidence and low self-worth. And, you know, it may look externally like they're doing okay, but on the inside, you know, the inside doesn't reflect how they appear on the outside. And yeah, I've just had wonderful experiences of working with people who have found their voice. They've found their voice. They've challenged themselves around their fears and discovered that they're still alive, you know, and they take more risks and then more risks and become more bold and more brave and become assertive and challenge what isn't okay for them within their organizations and in their personal and professional relationships. I've had really, quite recent experience of that with a client. And it's just extraordinary. It's really special to be a part of that. Yeah, it is. It's just really glorious watching people kind of grow their skill set and aptitudes in all sorts of ways.
Well, I already know people are going to want to reach out and connect with you. So how do they go about getting a hold of you, talking with you?
Yeah, so I have a particular interest in working with leaders, senior managers, business owners and entrepreneurs, and that's within the public, charitable and private sector. If anyone is interested in finding out a little bit more information about integrated executive coaching or psychotherapy, or if you want to book an appointment with me, I can be reached at belinda@eudaimonic.co.uk. So I'm just going to spell that email out. So it's Belinda, BELINDA, at eudaimonic, which is EUDAIMONIC.co.uk. My website is www.eudaimonic.co.uk. So that's the same spelling. And I can also be reached by mobile. So it's a UK mobile number, which is +44. And then the number is 7714 028 837. That number again is +44 7714 028 837.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Belinda. Thank you for taking the time to answer my questions. I know our listeners are going to be really excited to get to know you a little better. So wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Audrey. Take care.
Thanks for listening to the Flourishing Leader podcast. We would love to hear directly from you. Please reach out to us by emailing contact@theflourishingleaderpodcast.com.
As we all know, supporting what you enjoy by taking action matters. If you enjoyed today's show, please make sure you subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast app and leave us a review.
You can also find us on Facebook, X, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and LinkedIn.
Thank you again for listening in. We look forward to hearing from you. Until next time, take good care of yourself.